Press the button.
Same button before.
Yeah, and now it's live.
Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of South San Mateo County, I welcome the candidates and you, the audience, to this public forum for Redwood City City Council. I'm Lisa Conrad, a member of the South San Mateo County League, and I will be your moderator this evening. The League of Women Voters is a national, nonpartisan volunteer organization of women and men. Our mission is to encourage your active and informed participation in your government at every level. The League does not support or oppose candidates or political parties, but we do work to influence public policy through advocacy and education. Our education mission is to help voters gain fair and unbiased information in order to make an informed decision on Election Day. In addition to this forum, I encourage you to use the California State League's website, smartvoter.org, for additional information about the candidates and measures on your ballot. It's really a terrific website. You just type in your address, your ballot comes up, and you click on anything on your ballot, and it takes you to links throughout the internet. So to begin with, I'll ask everyone to please turn off their cell phones. This event is being recorded and will be replayed on local public access TV. You can access the recording by going to either the Mid-Peninsula Community Media Center's website, the League's website, or smartvoter.org. And Deborah Madoff is going to speak with us. She's from the Registrar's Office and will give us some information about this upcoming election.
Great.
Is there a button?
Melinda, come use this one.
I got it. Go to the podium.
My name is Melinda Dubroff. I work at the San Mateo County Elections Office. This year, the election in November will be held by mail, meaning everyone will receive a ballot in the mail, whether they've signed up to be a permanent vote-by-mail voter or not. There will be in-person voting options. The first thing you're going to receive in the mail is a sample ballot pamphlet. These have begun mailing this week. It's on an ongoing basis, and it might take a couple of weeks for that to come out to everyone. On October 5th, we'll be mailing ballots to everyone. The ballots look like this. Don't throw it away. This is the real deal. It is not junk mail. We get them to the post office on October 5th. Depending on your local delivery service, if you don't receive the ballot by October 16th, give us a call. Contact us in any way. Smoke signal, email, fax, all the information about the upcoming election is in your sample ballot pamphlet and in this brochure. The city clerk has some of these brochures, and I've put them out in the lobby as well. They explain the all-mail ballot election. The in-person voting options that I discussed include the 2 voting centers open during the 30-day voting period, which begins on October 5th. We have one at 555 County Center in downtown Redwood City, and then one at our elections office in San Mateo. On election day, you won't have the typical traditional polling places that you're used to. We're going to have what we call universal polling places. There are 32 of them throughout San Mateo County, and you can vote at any of them. So you live in Redwood City, you work in South San Francisco. If you want to, you can go to Pacifica on your way home and vote there. So we have voting machines, electronic voting machines that you can use, or you can be reissued a ballot if you never got it or you lost it, or you can just drop off your ballot. This is what the return envelope looks like. Be sure you sign it. We will not count your ballot unless we can verify the signature on the envelope. So that's very important. One more thing. Usually you have to get your ballot in by 8 p.m. on election day. Well, new election law allows us to count the ballot if it's postmarked on election day and received by Friday after the election. So that's really huge and especially good now that we're going to all mailed ballot elections for local elections. The presidential election in 2016 will be conducted in the traditional manner with your polling place down the street at the church, and you have to request a vote by mail ballot if you want it. So if you have any questions, look in your sample ballot pamphlet or contact us. Our website is shapethefuture.org. And I hope you enjoy this evening and get a lot of information from these great candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. So the format...
Dubroff.
The format this evening, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and also 2 minutes for their closing statement. The written questions will be accepted from you, the audience. This allows us to cover as wide a range of issues as possible and be sure that questions are not speeches and not redundant. Our volunteers are distributing 3x5 cards and for audience members to write down their questions. Please hold your card up if you want to submit a question and someone will collect it. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to each question. We have Shirley DeMarais, also a South San Mateo County League member, who's going to be monitoring the time. She will hold up a sign when there is 1 minute left, and a sign when there's 30 seconds left, and a red stop sign when the allotted time is up. There's another league volunteer, Ellen Hope, is going to be sorting the questions to avoid redundancy. There are 6 candidates this evening running for 4 seats on the Redwood City Council. The candidates are, in alphabetical order, Alicia Aguirre, Ian Bain, Janet B. Borgens, Roseanne Faust, Shelley Mazer, and Tanya Soleil. The candidates' 2-minute opening statements will be delivered in an order that was determined by the candidates drawing lots. The closing statements will be delivered in the reverse order of the opening statements. The questions from the audience will be answered by the candidates in a rotating order. This is a standard league format that we use to keep things equitable. So please write your questions on the cards available from our volunteers, Karen Schwartz and Diana Post. And league volunteers will collect your cards. And we will begin with Tanya Soleil giving her 2-minute statement.
I am Tanya Soleil. Over 20 years ago, I came to the Bay Area to work for a software startup, Shaney Inc. We sold that software startup to Intel. After that company, I went off and I started a small business, an auto repair shop, the first test-only station in the state of California. As part of the work that I did with that smog station, I got very involved with Sacramento, and I started to work with the Bureau of Automotive Repair. I became the industry representative to the Bureau of Automotive Repair. I chaired a task force on Governor Schwarzenegger's Conference on Entrepreneurship, and I was also the delegate selected to attend the Western Regional White House Conference on Healthcare. That's basically how I got involved in government. About 5 years ago, I came to Redwood City, and I started to live at Docktown. Docktown is a floating community on the water. I live on a floating home. One of the issues that we have right now in Redwood City is a jobs housing imbalance. And so one of the reasons that I'm running is because I'm passionate about solving this jobs housing imbalance. I believe we need more homes. I believe alternative homes, such as the floating homes that I live in, are an appropriate and advantaged solutions. So solutions such as floating homes, such as accessory dwelling units, such as tiny homes. We have a lot of people coming into the area who may not necessarily be here in 3 to 4 years and may be very happy to just simply have a bedroom, a small kitchenette, and a bathroom. A tiny home would be perfect for them. So that's really the platform that I'm running on. I respectfully ask for your support in November. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ian Bain, and for those of you who don't know me, I have served on the City Council since 2003, and I also served a partial term in 1998. Prior to that, I served 3 years on the Housing and Human Concerns Committee, which is a committee that helps nonprofits serve many people in our community. I also served on several nonprofit boards before running for the council. I first got involved in Redwood City because I was working in an organization called Kainos, which is a home and training center for adults with developmental disabilities. And one of the things that I realized during the 7 years that I was there was that this is really a special community. This is a community that has a strong sense of community, that pulls together, that works together, that helps people. And that was when I decided I really want to be part of this community. We moved around a little bit when I was growing up, but I grew up here in the Bay Area, mostly in Palo Alto, but did spend part of my childhood in Redwood City and always had fond memories. So when I graduated from Cal in 1989 with a degree in political science, I fell back on my experience working with people with disabilities. And this community has never let me down in terms of pulling together and helping people out. The two reasons I decided to run, first of all, I want to help people. And I have a lot of examples of people that I've helped over the years, whether it's getting a stop sign, whether it's getting a sidewalk repaired, or getting a street light. I always bring my average citizen hat to this role, and I think, how is this affecting average people's lives? The other reason I ran was a chance to shape the community. And we worked very hard to kickstart that change several years ago. But then what happened is the change happened very, very quickly. The economy turned around, and now we're in a situation where we've had a lot of change over a very short period of time. Some of it's good and some of it's not. And we're going to have to manage that very carefully over the next 4 years and the impacts that come with that change. And that's why I'm running now.
Thank you. Shelley Mazer?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to the League for hosting us. It's always great to have a League forum. So my name is Shelley Mazer. When you run for council, people always ask, why would you do this, right? And I always say, as a mom and as a nonprofit leader, I want to bring a focus on community engagement, for our city, a focus on developing our infrastructure that we need to support all the growth that's happening. And as a 10-year school board member who moved here for the diversity of the schools and the city, I want to make sure that Redwood City stays a great place for kids and families. So I think we're all feeling the effects of Redwood City's rapid growth and development in many ways. And that's why I believe it's council's job over the next several years to work with community, both new and long-term residents, to figure out what kind of city we will be and how we're going to work together to address the issues. I talked about infrastructure, which doesn't sound that exciting, but it's critical to how we experience our everyday life. We need to catch up to the building and address traffic and parking and pedestrian and bike safety, as well as the impacts the development is having on our schools and on housing. We also need to think about human infrastructure, the people who make our city work and who keep us safe. Right now we have fewer police than we did in 2008, and our firefighters are going to probably need some new equipment to meet the needs of these taller buildings. For me, Redwood City has been a great place to raise my family. My kids have gotten an excellent education, and they have had access to so many great opportunities. We need to make sure it stays that way for coming generations. The city can expand its partnerships with the schools, increase our number of parks, and make sure our libraries continue to be vibrant havens for so many kids. As a school board member, I've worked hard on increasing community engagement. I've looked at our facilities and tried to upgrade them. We've got a bond on the ballot, just in case you don't know. And I've worked to make sure that our schools continue to be welcoming places. I know I can bring all of this experience and a fresh perspective to the Redwood City Council, and I would ask for your vote when your ballot arrives in the mail this October.
Thank you. And Janet Borgens?
Good evening. My name is Janet Borgens. I'm a 46-year resident of Redwood City, and I have been a small business owner in Redwood City for 45 years. I raised my son till he was 14 as a single mother, met the man of my dreams, married him, and acquired 2 more children. So we raised 3 kids in Redwood City. They all went through the public school system. I was very involved in Little League, all of the sports, Pop Warner, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, selling Girl Scout cookies, all of the fun stuff that it takes to be a mom. My issues for Redwood City are several, but the biggest one is not everyone can make a meeting. Not everyone can have their voice heard. I want to be that voice for you. I want to listen to what you have to say, what your concerns are in your community, what your concerns are in your neighborhood, and I'm going to bring those back to the City Council where the policies are made that affect your everyday life. I think it's imperative that every voice gets heard. We don't always get it right. But I certainly want you to know that the opportunity is there and someone is up here listening and actually taking your concerns into consideration. So I would respectfully ask for your vote. I have sat on 3 boards and commissions appointed by the City Council: Senior Affairs, Housing, Human Concern, and currently on the Planning Commission. So I would like to continue that at the next level to the policy level where I know how it works when it's made, and this way I could like to create them. So I would respectfully ask for your vote, and if there's any questions of me, my phone number is all over the map. Please feel free to call me at any time.
Thank you. Roseanne Faust?
Good evening. My name is Roseanne Faust, and I'd actually like to tell you my story. As the daughter of an insurance clerk and maintenance worker, I was raised to work hard, to finish the job, and to stay true to my values. We arrived in Redwood City just over 20 years ago. I was pregnant with my first daughter, and we didn't know anyone. I fell in love with Redwood City, its history, its diversity, and its residents. I quickly got involved, including the Child Care Partnership Council, the Redwood Shores Community Association, the Redwood City Library Foundation, the Chamber, and the Sequoia Awards Scholarship Program. I'm honored every single day to make a difference for all the residents. I've served on the council since 2003, and in a recent candidate forum, each candidate was asked, what differentiates you from the other candidates? We have, I think, 5 great people up here, 6 including myself. And I used 3 words that I believe both describe me and guide me. The first word is heart. I love Redwood City, its people, its places, its history, and the future. And every day, as I drive through the streets of our town, I reflect on what we can do better. Humility. I'm not afraid to admit I make mistakes or to say I'm sorry. Being a council member is an honor and a privilege that carries through each and every conversation. And the final word is hope. I believe in the collective wisdom of a community that is engaged, willing to work through challenges, and open to creating a shared vision. I respectfully ask for your vote in October when the ballots arrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Aguirre?
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this event. This is very important to me because I so respect this organization and the nonpartisan way that you handle things. But, I want to talk a little bit about how I started in all this as well. In 1988, I was teaching at Foothill, De Anza, Santa Clara, and everywhere, and I was really fortunate to land a full-time position at Kenyatta College. And when I found that job, full tenure-track job, I said, this is it. I'm going to move to the city where I'm going to work. And I was able to move and find a house that we were renting. I was able to have my children walk to school in a school that was nearby. They were able to walk to Pop Warner, to their sports events, to do that. And I thought, what a great city to be a part of. I started to get involved in their school board when they were going to school. And then it started a domino effect, because one of the standards that I had when I was growing up with my family is like, you give back. We're an immigrant family, and you give back, and you do things. And I remember doing that with my family. And so by being on my children's school board, then there was kind of a natural progression to go into the Redwood City Elementary School District, serving all of the children of the parents that I was teaching at Kenyatta. It was important for me to do that. And after that, it was also kind of a natural progression to come and be part of the Redwood City City Council. And I've been on the council for 10 years. And I can't tell you how much it means to be able to continue that circle for me, to be a professor, to also be able to serve in our city, seeing where things are going, really enjoying meeting the folks that I work with, and knowing that service for me is one of my number one priorities that has been since I started and I moved here in 1988.
Thank you. The first question For the incumbents, what are you doing? And for the candidates, what will you do about the Woodside 101 interchange? We'll start with Tanya Soleil.
The Woodside 101 interchange is critical to our transportation infrastructure. I live at Docktown. That is the exit I take 90% of the time to get home. Yet there are properties all around. The reality, unfortunately, is that this is not really a Redwood City project. This is a national Caltrans project. So the way that I see it is we need to not only plan for what we currently have in place, but for what is coming down the road. There are a number of projects that are already being considered, and yet the plans are not being held in response to this particular project. So in fact, this is one of the issues that I see in government right now. One of the problems that I have identified is the actual process that government is using is not always a very logical process. And part of what I would hope to change with projects such as the Woodside Interchange is the actual logic and progression of how we make these decisions. Thank you.
Ian Bain.
Yeah, the plans for the interchange are moving along, thankfully. They've been moving along for many, many years, but the good news is they're funded. They're being written up right now. We've given feedback as a council, particularly on the original plans, which weren't very good, but now we have a much better plan that alleviates a lot of the choke points at various intersections. The big issue is whether or not we should continue to approve any development east of that interchange. There are some proposals on the table that would bring quite a bit of congestion to the other side of 101. So my feeling is we need to move that interchange along first before we consider further development out there.
Thank you. Shelley Mazer.
Thanks. So as you've heard, the project is moving. I think one of the things the council can do is continue to advocate and be a voice for Redwood City and its needs as that project gets underway and as it continues to change. And I think that's part of our role in a process where we aren't the actual decision makers. Our role is to speak up for the needs of the city and what our city needs. It's funny because I work right down there, and so I drive and bike through that interchange almost every single day. And one of the things I talked about in my opening statement was biking, and it's a little bit terrifying, to be honest with you, to bike through that intersection. The bike lanes change in different places, and so one of the things I would love to see as we upgrade that for the cars that do need to continue to drive through there is also to figure out how do we connect the bike infrastructure down that way. But I think it also speaks to a bigger issue, which is the issue of traffic in general in Redwood City. And I know some of you took a little while to get here because you were probably going through a little bit of traffic. And so I think that's one of the areas we really do need to address, as I said in my opening statement. And one of the ways we can look at that is through a traffic demand management system, which I believe the city is talking about and working on. But I think we could do a little bit of speeding that along.
So other than blow it up, I think, a little brevity there. Seriously, I travel that intersection every single day, so I know the issues that are there. It is a gridlock from 101 all the way to 280. It is a connector there, so you're getting cars from all directions. I have attended several of the planning sessions regarding the Caltrans plans, and they are moving along. It is a process. It doesn't work fast enough for those of us that are stuck in it all the time, but it is moving in the right direction. They are listening to all of the input that they're receiving. So I think it's moving. I think we need to really be respectful of development that we are creating so that the impacts are definitely considered. We can't do one and then have a larger impact. So we need to really combine these and partner with those who's going to be making the final decision. I think we really need to have our voice heard. It's in Redwood City, and maybe Caltrans controlled, but it is in Redwood City. So I think we need to take control of it and make sure that our needs and our concerns are really met, and there's a safety factor there because you cannot get across on a bicycle safely or walk right now. So we really need to have that conversation.
So as a council member, I have served for 10 years on the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, which is the body that handles the half-cent sales tax for transportation projects. One of the projects that I supported, that I worked on for 10 years, I was on the TA from 2004 until March of this year, is the Woodside Road Interchange. So I have followed this project very, very closely. It is in the environmental impact stage. There are alternatives that are being evaluated. The half-cent sales tax is a part of the funding for it. The city also is another part of the funding. We're looking for state funds for the interchange, as well as the development that has occurred. They pay into a transportation fee fund that will go to redoing the interchange. It is one of the 3 highest priorities of the Transportation Authority. As you saw, the Peninsula interchange up in Burlingame is completed. The Broadway exchange is being completed, and now the next one is the Woodside Road interchange. So I will continue to advocate for it, and I think that we all need to do that.
You know, as council members, we all serve, and we don't just come here on Mondays and have meetings, and we all serve on different entities and in organizations, both that are local and regional and statewide. Roseanne mentioned serving on the TA. Jeff G., our mayor, serves on the Caltrain, and I also, is it the Caltrain? Samtrans and Caltrain, both of them. And I'm on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which serves 9 Bay Area counties. Those, both Woodside Road Exchange and 82, those we know are state highways. We really can't make any of that change. But we can influence in the regional boards that we're working on, because we know that what we change in Redwood City is going to have an effect both on El Camino, on 101, on Woodside, and many of the cities that are east and west of us feed into 101 and Woodside. So we know that that is a priority. And I think you're going to see that coming about in the next 3 or 4 years as a plan, and maybe completed as many as 5 years. So that is something that we're all very well aware of, and we're working regionally on that, because it isn't just a Redwood City issue, and that is a state highway. And we know that anything that we do to change there will only be a benefit for our residents, as well as the residents that come and go or feed into Redwood City.
Thank you. I would like to ask the audience to address questions to the whole panel. We'd like everyone to have an opportunity to answer all the same questions. If you have questions for individual candidates, I'm sure they would answer them, speak with you after we're finished here. So the next question, what have you personally been able to accomplish for Redwood City that has improved the quality of life for its residents? And we'll start with Ian Bain on this one.
Well, first of all, most of what we do as a group. You need 4 votes to approve anything on the council at minimum, but often we have more than that. But personally, I've been involved in helping people with the 30 feet in front of their house. As I mentioned earlier, the sidewalk repairs, the tree trimming. When I first got on the council again in 2003, there were 13 uncontrolled intersections in Redwood City, meaning they didn't have a stop sign in either direction. I worked with all of those neighborhoods to get stop signs there. I'd say my favorite story is when I served my partial term in 1998, I was contacted by a man who'd been trying to get a street light on his street for 10 years. And he said that he'd been finding trash. He lived right behind a grocery store. He'd been finding all sorts of unsavory activity in his neighborhood. And he said, can you help me? And so one of the first things I did is I called City Hall. I found out the status of his project, and we were able to move that along and prioritize it so that a year later he got his street light. And I got an email from him saying, thank you. All of my neighbors and I really appreciate what you've done for us. You've really changed the quality of our life in our neighborhood. And that's one of the things that keeps me going.
Thank you. Shelley Mazer?
Well, as a school board member, I'm going to have to go with, I've worked really hard with my fellow school board members to improve our schools in Redwood City. And I have to say, I think we've made some significant progress over the last 10 years. We've had to lead through some very difficult times, as many of you, well, all of you know, you all lived through it. The economic downturn was a significant hit to our schools and our school district, and we had to manage our budget effectively, make the least harmful cuts we could make, because I will say the cuts we made were harmful and they weren't good for kids. But we made it through. During that time, we were able to increase academic achievement. We were able to increase community engagement. I've talked about that a couple of times, and I'll just share with you one of the projects that I initiated and led was an outreach to the community for over a year, together with one other board member. We pretty much went, many of you saw us, because we would go anywhere we were asked to go to talk about the schools. We came to council, we went out to Rotary, to Kiwanis, to PTAs, anybody who would have us, we'd go and talk and hear what they were thinking about the schools. The whole goal was to understand how is our community feeling and what do they need from us to manage the schools effectively. So I'm going to say I'm quite proud of the work we've done, and I feel that it has been a huge contribution to the city.
Thank you.
So how many of you remember the 2 terrible fires we had on Woodside Road? And the terrible flooding. I live in Friendly Acres, and we flood when it doesn't rain. It's the luck of the draw. So when we had those 2 fires, I was there at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I was there with coffee, shoes, blankets. It was something I felt I had to do. I had the fire department calling me saying, we need more shoes, we need this, we need that. I'm the chair of the Salvation Army Advisory Board, so I got my group together, my team together, we provided food for all of those that were sheltered in all the shelters. So I was very excited about that. The flooding, we actually went over to the mobile parks and helped people evacuate out of their mobile homes. That's the kind of thing I like to do. I'm hands-on. I want to get out there and help the people that need the help. And in my neighborhood, that's been several times. In this community, it's been several times. And I won't stop that because that's who I am. So getting back to the community is what I'm all about. If you have a need, I put in the speed humps in my neighborhood. Some love it, some don't love it, but it does slow down traffic. So it has worked. So I'm very active in my neighborhood association. I believe in knocking at your door if there's an issue before we call the police. Let's have a conversation. Let's find out how things can go in a better way, and let's have a dialogue. Sit down at the table, look at each other, and have conversations. That's what I like to do.
So from my perspective, again, being on council is being a member of the team. But the things that I have pushed forward and that I have personally worked on are, first of all, a fiscally sound city. We have reserves in excess of 20% of our general fund. We have instituted pension and benefit reforms, and thank you to our labor groups and our city staff. All of them worked with the council to make sure that we could weather the difficult times. I am really proud of the community's living room, which I definitely had a part in our courthouse square. As I was precinct walking, a resident said 7 days a week she can find something to do for free in Redwood City, and that's a part of it. Stanford in Redwood City. I was one of 2 council members that spent over 4 years working on the development agreement to bring Stanford University and all of the benefits that they bring to Redwood City. The Redwood Shores Library. I helped raise $850,000 for the collection of books for the Redwood Shores Library. The Redwood Shores Child Care Center. That was one of the reasons I got involved, because childcare was at a premium. And the strategic objectives and our annual report. If you go on the city's website now, you will see a list of strategic objectives that the council voted on, and you will see an annual report so that everyone in the community can be fully aware of what we're doing and all of the implications of that.
As I mentioned earlier, one of my passions is working with students and youth. So the areas that I think I've been able to bring together are working with the youth from the North Fair Oaks community, making sure that the library in the North Fair Oaks areas is viable, has better collections, making sure that it is one of our priorities. I also am a junkie for utilities. I just love the way sewers flow and all of those things. So, I've just really enjoyed my time there. So I really worked hard to make sure that our infrastructure is really a key, that we have really great reserves, that we have enough funding to take care of our streets, our sewers, and how they move. And to me, I should have been an engineer. I really enjoy learning about how that works, but also making sure that it's working correctly. Our creeks, our streets, our roads, our sidewalks, that they're safe for people of all ages in our community.
Thank you. And Tanya Soleil?
So I'd like to mention really two areas. Number one, as a resident of Docktown, we're really focused as a community on cleaning the creek. So whenever, I won't say I participate on every one of them, but I participate in a lot of our creek cleanups. This past weekend we had one. I was out there cleaning the creek. That may not sound like something huge, but somebody's got to be out there. The fact is the rains and everything bring all of this garbage down, and it happens on a regular basis. And so the residents, the whole community at Docktown, goes out there on a regular basis, and I have participated regularly to clean the creek. In addition to that, one of the features that I have in my background is I'm Hispanic and I speak Spanish. So the other way that I've really contributed to this community is to try to help communities that only speak Spanish. With the people at 910 Clinton, with the people at the mobile homes, with the people at different communities, I went out there, I was their translator. When the mobile homes were flooded, they didn't have anyone to tell their story. I went out there, I spoke to them and wrote up their stories in the patch. So I have really tried to help the communities in this area that have not really had a voice, have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any plans to add more parks for people? If so, when? If not, why not? And this person does not count dog parks. Begin with Shelley Mazer.
Oh, my dogs will be so sorry to hear that. So actually one of the things I've been talking about is as the city looks at the downtown areas, how can we add a little bit more green space in the downtown? Some of you may know that the county is looking at redoing several of their buildings. And so I've talked to a couple of the supervisors to say, as you're looking at those buildings and as you're redoing them, could you, if I am lucky enough to be elected, could you work with me on the council and other council members to look at putting little parks throughout where they are and then help us thinking about them through the rest of the city. I've actually been trying to encourage in my neighborhood, which is close to El Camino, the addition of some small parks where there's just little bits of land and it's not really used. I think those are great opportunities to put in what are called little pocket parks. So I hope that there are plans, and if there aren't plans, it'll be certainly something that I would advocate for if I'm elected.
So we need more parks. We need more open space. We've got so much development going on in and around downtown that it's becoming overwhelming for a lot of residents. And I'm hearing that as I walk precincts. So like it, love it, hate it, we need more open space downtown. So we do have a piece of land downtown that was going to have a hotel. I know it's a valuable piece of land, but I would really like to see a park there with a piece of art, which is kind of like someplace you can go and just relax, sit on a bench, right in our downtown with all of this going on. I also would like to see some of the parks that we have in our community a little larger. Friendly Acres is going to get a little larger park because of Stanford, and I appreciate that. And I really appreciate the fact that we've teamed up with Kaboom and other organizations that have helped us upgrade our parks. So we need to make sure that we get that fee, and that fee is the right amount from developers to help us maintain and create more parks. So it would be really exciting if the dollars matched the cost. So I want to make sure that that happens. So we do need more open space, and I think downtown is primed for it right now.
So we are fortunate to have probably one of the best park and rec directors on the peninsula in Chris Beth. And he works with the council on the park and lieu fee that we collect from the development community. And he has helped us with the relationships with Kaboom to rebuild certain parks that we have. We bought a piece of property to expand Jardín de Niños Park. We upgraded Spinas Park, we've upgraded Maddox Park, we've upgraded Stulstaff Park, so the parks that are already existing in the community. I've actually had some conversations also with the Board of Supervisors as well as the San Mateo County History Museum, because if you know where the law library site is, there is discussions that that law library would be moved elsewhere. Well, that's a very nice piece of land for a potential downtown park that would connect to Courthouse Square. Chase Bank has also been floating out there as a potential site, and perhaps we could put together the funds needed to purchase that, and that would expand Courthouse Square. There are a lot of opportunities, and I see all the folks in the audience, and I see the folks up here, and again, it's collectively figuring out these problems, because absolutely we need parks, and we need to expand on them, and we need to upgrade our existing parks as well.
You know, we've heard from our community how important open space is, and besides the things that were mentioned by some of my colleagues, we actually started a group of folks that work together with our Parks and Recreation Department and Parks and Art Foundation, which is looking exactly at that. So yes, are there plans? Definitely there are plans, and looking at either city-owned space or space that's nearby that we can attach, that we can, you know, talking about the pocket parks, but we also have pieces of city-owned land that are just small. But so if we can attach that to others, of course, the developers will be working with us with the park and lieu fee. So open space and plans for future parks are very important. As we build downtown, we need to add the green areas. And I'm just so grateful for what the Parks and Arts Foundation is doing, because that's one of their goals, not only to bring parks, but also to make it in a very artistic way.
So the Inner Harbor process actually did discuss a park out there. In some of the versions that I saw, they actually had some soccer fields. The only problem I had with them was at the time they were located right across from the jail. So actually the first time that I came to Redwood City, I came as a soccer parent. And I brought my children to play soccer. And for 10 years, I was the soccer mom par excellence. They said it was soccer, soccer, soccer. So I know that there's actually two types of space. There's recreational space and there's open space, and we need both of them. On the one hand, like I said, we can have additional fields in the Inner Harbor area. In addition, we also have to consider water parks. And by water parks, I don't mean like Great America. I mean the Bay. We have this incredible resource. We're one of the few communities that have this, and we need to go out there and open it up to the residents and allow them to go out and enjoy it. In addition, there's also parklets. I was at the Fair Oaks community, and they had just little parks opening up, stand-up parks if you wish, and bringing them down and then going on and moving on. And the final piece I would say is really rooftop parks. We're right next to Facebook. They're creating the state-of-the-art rooftop park, and I think it would be really beautiful if Redwood City did the same thing for some of the buildings it's building out.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to put in a plug for the dog park, which is a great park. And if you haven't been there, check it out. It's not just for dogs. It's for people, mostly who have dogs. People with cats don't take their cats to a cat park, but that was a long time coming, and we used an underutilized parcel to give people something that would be centrally located, in addition to the one that we have in Redwood Shores. Now that that's done, there are no more plans for additional dog parks. In terms of the question, it was about plans. The only plan that's in place right now is what Tanya just referred to in terms of the Inner Harbor Precise Plan, which will come to us after the election. So we'll discuss that and figure out if how the parks will fit into a plan out there. I am aware of some discussions around places like the Law Library and the Chase Building, but those are neither here nor there, unfortunately, because we don't own those parcels. There are other parcels I would love to get our hands on as a community to turn into public parks, and we're having those discussions, very creative discussions right now. I think the biggest opportunity is what Janet referred to with the parcel that we own on the Winslow Street lot. You may be aware a few weeks ago we rejected a proposal to build a hotel there. Well, we own that land, and we can do whatever we want with it. I can envision some sort of public-private partnership that would involve a 2-story underground parking garage with a public park on top of it, and even public artwork. Those are the kinds of creative discussions we're having right now. We're opening that up to the community for input on what to do with that parcel.
Thank you. Getting some questions on affordable housing. What can the council do to deal with the need for more low-cost housing in Redwood City? Some possible alternatives to increase affordable housing may include some that would restrict landlords, like rent control, stabilization, evictions for cause. Are you open to considering these solutions or philosophically opposed to solutions that would restrict landlord and property rights? So if you have some ideas to help with more affordable housing and your positions on some that might restrict landlord and property rights. Be Janet Borgens.
So this question comes up all the time. So I'm going to go flat on record that says I do not support rent control. That does not mean I do not believe we have a problem, because we do. I believe we need to recreate what that phrase means, because I don't know a rent control policy that is working now. So I would really like for us to get together as a community, get our partners to the table, the landlords, the tenants, the nonprofits, the city, everyone to the table to find out what the solution is for this. We definitely have to stop talking about it and do something, because it is creating a huge void in our community. We are losing a great part of our workforce because they cannot afford to stay here. And the conversation has got to be creative. It has got to be now. We can't push it down the road any further. It is keeping me up at night. I know it's keeping you up at night. It's something we have to address. And I really want to make sure that we do not forget this topic. It's been in all the news. We have some opportunities. I have a plan. I'd like to team up with a program that's already called Safety First in the community with the fire department. And I have a plan to team up with that plan to provide an opportunity for property owners to extend that plan for the promise of an affordability. And that would be partnering with them with finances to do upgrading for their current infrastructure that needs upgrading. Talk to me later.
So the timing of this question couldn't be better, actually, because this morning I joined what is called the Closing the Jobs Housing Gap Task Force that the County of San Mateo has put together with elected officials from throughout San Mateo County, the business community, for-profit housing developers, nonprofit housing developers, community members. And the goal of this group is actually to figure out collectively, each of our communities, Redwood City, San Carlos, Menlo Park, up and down the peninsula are facing this. And I was really inspired by Assemblymember Rich Gordon, because he said, and I 100% agree with him, we are not going to fill the bay anymore. We are not going to build on open space. So we need to have a strong conversation about repurposing built on existing land. What can we do to make the built environment better? And how can we build more housing affordable and at all income levels? He was so on point. Next month, we're going to have Carol Gallant, who I referenced at a council meeting 6 months ago, who is a UC Berkeley professor on urban policy and urban development. She is a national leader on creative affordable housing solutions. I want to highlight Mayor G, who is working with the American Legion on El Camino to talk about housing for veterans. So there's a lot of opportunities.
I think this is the number one issue right now in Redwood City is affordable housing. And there's a sense of urgency, I think, on the part of all of us, especially as we see folks that are being displaced. I had a student that came up to me the other day and said, I got an eviction notice. And so what do you do with all these things? And one of the things that folks sometimes don't realize is all around us, we have about 769 affordable housing units that we were able to do with redevelopment funds. That funding went away. So what do we do now? And there's a lot of partnerships that we're actually working with. The lot that is going to be on Bradford Street has more than seven proposals in order to make that just affordable housing for seniors and maybe have a child care center. There are other programs, community benefits that we're adding now to all the developer fees. But as I'm so glad that Roseanne mentioned that's happening. We see this all around us. There isn't a sense of urgency on how do we do this, and we can't do it alone. And we need to work with partners like our developers, our business community, the county as well, and look at places where we can actually find to make sure that folks aren't displaced.
So as I mentioned in my opening statement, I think part of the solution is allowing additional floating homes, allowing accessory dwelling units like ADUs and tiny homes. People go through different stages in their lives and they have different needs at different stages. The reason why I'm basically against rent control is that it's a benefit or a program that runs with the property, not with the need. Having lived in New York City, I've seen too often where that program is abused. We need programs more like Section 8 type programs, either at the national, federal, state, or even local city level that would tie a benefit to the actual need. So that would be the type of program that I think that the city could create fairly quickly to help protect some of the people already here. In addition, one of the other things that I have seen tried in other cities is the fact of different amenities in homes, where you have an apartment, say at the front side, which has granite countertops and all of the latest gizmos on it, and then you have apartments in another area that are not Hilux, do not have granite countertops, and so appropriately priced for a different market segment. These are all different options that we as a community need to explore, and we need to do it now.
This is probably the toughest challenge that we face as a community. And I've said this in other forums as well. We really need to think creatively and be forward-looking and work with a variety of different groups in the community to come up with a solution. One of the things that I think we can do immediately is review our current 1992 ordinance on renter protections and see what we can do to extend the amount of notice that renters are given if they're being evicted, as well as extend the relocation benefits. But we need to avoid those evictions in the first place. And I'm having conversations right now. I had a conversation last night with members of the Association of Realtors on how we can intervene with these property owners who have bought these buildings before they even think about issuing any eviction notices. I'm having the same conversation with the Tri-County Apartment Association in terms of how do we get owners of these properties to be responsible. Tomorrow, I have a meeting with Community Legal Services of East Palo Alto to get some ideas in terms of what they think we can do in Redwood City, and hopefully we can come up with some creative solutions to this. One of the things that we're doing right now is we've just passed the Fire Safety First program. I give credit to our mayor and our fire chief for coming up with this program. It offers low-interest loans to apartment building owners to install sprinkler systems in exchange for rent stabilization for a period of 5 years. Those loans can be forgiven. The rent stabilization can be extended. We're very hopeful that that program will provide an incentive to stabilize rents, and we'll see how that plays out.
Well, it's always a challenge to go last on this question because so many of the people up here have spoken about a lot, have provided a lot of good ideas. I will say, usually the Fire Safety First program comes up much more frequently. I do think it was a creative solution that the council took to trying to address the needs of people who are living in our city right now. I'll say a couple of other things, though. One is looking at city-owned land where we can develop affordable housing. And one of the things I think about from my perspective is prioritizing city workers and school district employees so that they can live closer to where they work. Burlingame has been looking at that and has approved a proposal from a developer that would prioritize those two groups of people and allow it to be allow them to live close to their work. A couple of other things that I think are important. One is the development of the community benefits plan, so that it does include some focus on affordable housing and ensures that we have some money available for that. A couple of other things are establishing priority development areas, such as along the El Camino, where we can look at making sure that there is affordable housing available in that. And then the last thing, it's not a direct action that council can take, but again, it's in that role of advocacy. Tanya mentioned Section 8 vouchers. If the council can work with our legislators, our federal legislators, to advocate for streamlining a Section 8 process, then we can make it easier for people to use those in our city.
Thank you. There's some questions on development downtown. What's your position on a building moratorium to let the city infrastructure catch up with the building that's been going on downtown? And also assuming that there are developer fees for income, the impact of that on slowing development to better manage the impacts. And we begin with Roseanne Faust.
So I've received emails and had conversations on this question, and one of the struggles that I've had is when people talk about a building moratorium, that means we can't build the Habitat for Humanity homes, 20 homes that we have on Jefferson. That means we can't go ahead with the Bradford Street development. That also means that we cannot look at city-owned property for affordable housing downtown. So from a moratorium perspective, that does not seem like the solution that we're looking for. What I have said, and I have written this, and I have answered this question, is I think we have a downtown precise plan. We have met the cap on office. We are 65% of the way there on residential. It's time to pause. It is time to get our traffic and parking situations worked out. I am not in favor of a downtown precise plan 2 at this point in time. I want to see where our new vibrant neighborhood of downtown and the new residents, of which we're expecting somewhere. There's been numbers out there that have been wildly inflated. At our Monday council meeting, Aaron Ackman, our interim city manager, said we can expect 2,000 to 3,000 new residents in the apartment units that have come online downtown. I want to see this new neighborhood evolve, and I want to see how it shapes out. And so that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
I think this is a time that we have to stop and look at what we've done, review the pluses, the minuses, the traffic, the congestion, the parking, the folks that are living here. I very much agree with Roseanne, as what we're saying is like, let's see where this is taking us, and then where do we go? If we're looking at things, is it in another area? Is it in El Camino route? Are there other areas where it's high transit where we can build density? But right now, I think that it's a time for us to stop, take a breath, and look at what's happening in our downtown and how that's affecting the rest of us. And hopefully, it'll bring about all the good things that we've been planning in our downtown precise plan, including retail. Since we aren't going to be working with the office and the caps that are already reached or close to being reached, we need to go now and look at what other parts of the city that we've been focusing on in our downtown precise plan that we should be focusing on.
One of the issues that I'm most passionate about is water. I have lived in a lot of different countries: Central America, Europe, Israel, and the United States. Even China has problems with water. I became really concerned about development in Redwood City as I kept watching the issues with water grow. I really felt the moratorium was necessary when the governor was basically forced to call attention to the problem that we have. We don't have snow. That's one of our storage systems. You know, each one of our storage systems is heavily impacted. I lived in Puerto Rico at one point. I have friends who just went to Puerto Rico. They're rationing every other day. They had hoped that they would get water. There were 2 storms in the horizon. Well, the storms came by. The island got the wind but did not get the water. That's kind of where we are about El Nino coming this year. Yes, maybe he'll come, but he may not come exactly where we need him. So I'm really very concerned, and I think that this is an area that we really have to look for. I will say there is a glimmer of hope, if you wish. I went to a really fascinating presentation from the NASA space station people, and they were talking about what they do for the space station. Basically, they can't get water up there. So it's a system that obviously recycles your own, oh, sorry, stop. Okay, I'll leave it there. End on that question mark.
So there's no doubt that our community is suffering from what I call development fatigue. We've had a lot of change in a short period of time. Our infrastructure hasn't caught up, and people are seeking solutions. One of the solutions that's been put on the table is a moratorium. I don't believe that we should stop development completely. I think we just need to look at it a lot more critically, and I think we need to slow it down. Someone asked about the fees to slow growth, and I believe that refers to our community benefits program, which is called Partnership Redwood City. I believe that we should only approve developments if they have substantial community benefits. One of the developments we approved recently will add 2 stories of underground parking that will connect to our Jefferson Avenue garage. So I don't want to close the door completely on a development that will benefit the community, but I want to make sure that they do benefit the community. I voted against the cap, raising the cap in office space when we had a hot office market, and there were all these developers who wanted to come and say, you know, hey, raise your cap, and we'll bring more building space here. We have enough office space in Redwood City. The jobs housing imbalance was referred to earlier. We don't need to exacerbate that. So those are the kinds of critical decisions we're going to need to make over the next 4 years.
I have said publicly several times that I do support a pause in our development, but that doesn't mean a moratorium. We do need, I completely agree, to continue to develop the affordable housing that we have coming in downtown. We need to look at the ability for retail to come into downtown, and we need to look at our infrastructure and assess the impacts that the growth has had right now. However, I believe that we need to continue to grow and change as a city. And but we need to do that together. It's why I've talked a lot about community engagement and a lot about how do we work together to figure out what's the kind of city that we want to be. I think we can continue to look at things like traffic and parking, the things that, as I said at the beginning, all impact us every single day. We can look about getting kids around safely, and we can continue to look at making sure that our residents have places to live and places to enjoy.
So how many of you find it really comfortable to get around town? So I believe in pause. I actually have a prop, it says pause. Because we really need to consider, this was a very community engaged plan. It was a very robust plan. The community was very engaged with it. That means it's your plan. It's not, when we say we, that means all of you. It is everyone's plan. We, as a community, need to go back to the table and say, did we get it right? What don't we like? Some of the things we can't change now that we've done it, but let's not do it again. Let's celebrate. Our economy wasn't doing well. We needed something to jumpstart it. This was it. It was a huge success to our demise. We remodeled our whole house and didn't move out. So we are feeling that pinch. So we need to make sure that we bring all of you back to the table to help us continue with the growth of our community in a way that we're going to benefit from, because we're really welcoming developers, but we're really feeling the pinch as residents. So we really need to make sure that everyone is benefiting from this. That means you, the residents. And we talk about benefits package. I want to make sure that that benefit cost really pays for the benefit. It can't just be a little pool of money that's thrown out here and us to say, there's your money. And then in 10 years, it costs 3 times that much to accomplish what we want. So I want to make sure that that benefit you receive, you, the community, receive. And there are a lot of good ideas out here. I have some more of those ideas. Come and speak to me later.
Thank you. Got a lot of questions on traffic congestion. and some suggestions. It's become a major issue, and the new properties aren't even fully completed and being utilized. Suggesting, what about promoting ferries to the Port of Redwood City? And how do you feel about bikes and improving bike safety? Essentially, what are your ideas for improving public transportation? Caltrain is overloaded and expected to get even worse, even with the new cars they're adding. So, ideas for improving public transportation within our city.
I believe
And I'm sorry, that's Alicia to begin.
All of those ideas are great. I can't wait to see the ferries come to Redwood City. We've been talking about that. We've been doing pilot programs with different companies. I think it's something that we're going to continue to study. I think it would be great for our city. I lived in Seattle, and I just love the way I was able to move around in all the ferries, and love to see that happen here. We've actually added, and I know we've added a lot more. I think last year we had 17 miles of bike lanes in our city. And I think that as we've been doing some of the road diets and doing some of the streetscaping, because we've been improving all of the streets as part of the infrastructure, we've been adding all of the bike lanes, and I think those are very important. As far as public transportation, I know that when we get electrification of our train system, it'll be an improvement for all of us, that we can, work as far as Caltrain and when we do that. So there's a lot of things that we need to work on, again, as I mentioned earlier, regionally, that will help improve, for us locally for public transportation. We work closely, with the students. Again, they work with the Samtrans buses and see where we need more, where we need to do. We have folks coming in from Half Moon Bay that are working in this area, and public transportation isn't always easy. So all of the above, the ferries, the public transportation, and in the bus system, and also our rail system is a valuable asset. We need to find a way to quickly improve the electrification of trains so that we can get more folks moving in some of the trains. And we did get a lot of trains that came, I believe they were from New York. I can't remember. We got Canada? LA. Okay, that was closer. Thank you.
Okay. Tanya Soleil?
So yes, I would agree that we need ferries. We also need east-west transportation, not just north-south transportation. I would also agree that all of us have a lot of different methods of transportation. For example, I don't just drive, I also bicycle ride. In fact, into downtown these days, if there's any which way that I can carpool with someone or I can ride my bicycle, those are really the two main ways that I get to downtown. It just, the parking issue is just too big right now. So I think we need to encourage that. But, I'll plead guilty. I'm probably one of those terrible bicycle riders you guys all don't like, because I'm running lights and I'm running everything I'm not supposed to. But as we get more and more bicycle riders, there will be more discipline on the streets. And that's something that we all need to strive to get people not just driving cars, but using public transportation and using bicycles, plus walking. A lot of us, what boggles my mind sometimes is when I see people spend an hour at a gym when in fact they could just walk to work and get the same benefit. So somewhere we have to find a better balance.
In Bain?
Yeah, I think like any big problem, we need to break it down into smaller pieces. When we're talking about traffic and transportation, we're talking about a couple different things. First of all, there's getting around the region. That's what commuters are doing. And then there's getting around our city, which is what our residents are trying to do. And often, commuters, if they use Caltrain, they have the last mile problem. That's where they do need to take their bike, or they need to have a bus, or they need to be able to catch a shuttle to get to where they're going. And we need to tackle all of those problems differently. So we have supported bike lanes as a council. I've personally been involved. I was on the CCAG Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for a few years, and we recently established a complete streets committee to take a look at our streets very carefully and make sure that people can bicycle safely. I actually don't bicycle around the city very often. I will take my bike up to the mountains and bike up there because it's safer. One of the innovative things we're doing right now is we're actually looking at a streetcar. So on Monday, we took a look. We're going to fund a study to take a look at a streetcar that would go down Broadway and try to get workers to where they need to be at the new Stanford facility, at the Stanford Medical Clinic, from the train station, bring them into downtown. I think we're going to have to look more at those local approaches that subsidize what Samtrans and Caltrain are doing.
Thank you. Shelley Mazer?
So I think there's a couple of things. Of course, we do think we need to improve our transportation options for sure. But, you know, it's part of this links back to the question before on the moratorium. It's one of the reasons I don't think we can have a moratorium on building, because we need to be able to build around these transit and to continue to build these transit corridors. So that I think is important. I think we can look at alternative modes of transportation. As I mentioned, I do bike to work when I can. And so improving our bike lane infrastructure as much as we possibly can. I agree, Redwood City's done a great job. And if you talk to the Silicon Valley Bike Coalition, it's one of the model cities, and yet there's still more work to do. If we look at parking, I think we can do a couple of things potentially in downtown that might make it easier for those of us who are coming for shorter visits, which is to have some time-limited spaces around the shops and retail, and then have people who are parking all day park maybe in the underground garage, which I hear is usually not full during the day. And so that would be a way to help us all who are just coming for shorter visits. We could also provide some priority parking for carpools to incentivize carpooling. And then the final thing is, I think, on the shuttle issue, shuttles are hard because they go shorter times, and so they frequently don't have enough ridership. But if we can look at some collaborations creatively with other cities, with school district, and look at how we could implement shuttles in a different way, I think there's some possibilities for that.
Thank you.
So I hate road diets when I'm in my car. I love them when I'm on my bike. So, I mean, they work safely there. I do support the ferry. I think it's time we really get that off the ground, and I think there's enough ridership now to support that ferry, so I think we need to do that. I think the streetcar, I would get on that. It's in my neighborhood. I live in Friendly Acres. I could hop on it and go right downtown. So I really love that idea. I'd like to see that off the ground. I spoke with Redwood Shores residents who had a concern about the bus. It just doesn't come at a convenient time or enough. So we need to make sure that we, partner with them, have conversations with our transportation partners to make sure that they're providing the services that are needed. Parking. I don't support underparking development. I understand why that's supported. I don't support it because all it does is take those cars and parks them into your neighborhoods. So you end up having people park in front of your house that are working downtown because they don't have a place to park or don't want to pay for it. There's plenty of parking in our parking lots. I walked it. It's there. Unfortunately, nobody wants to park in a parking garage. They want to park as close as they can to their business. I understand that. By limiting the amount of time you can park, let's say on Broadway, that will provide turnover for those merchants who desperately need those clients to come into their establishments. So I think we could look at that kind of limitation. I also would support a park and ride, where we could maybe partner with Kenyatta College, I'm not going to look at her, and shuttle people downtown. So it could take 10 cars off the road. So.
Well, I think many of the things have already been said. I'm very excited that we approved on Monday night the streetcar study, because I do think that would harken back to the 1940s in Redwood City when we had the Red Line and we had a streetcar. If the streetcar could go up and down Broadway, if it also could go out to Pacific Shores Center and the Port of Redwood City. The ferries are an absolutely great idea, both in my role on the council as well as my professional life. The things that I work on are housing and transportation. And so the ferry has been something for the Port of Redwood City because there is $15 million in the Measure A, the half-cent sales tax, that we all passed as a community back in 1988 and 2004 for a Redwood City ferry terminal. The South San Francisco ferry is online. There is talk about having public-private partnerships. The Caltrain electrification, we need to have it electrified so it'll be in service by 2021. And in terms of Caltrain doesn't have a dedicated funding source. So that is also something that the community has to think about. The shuttles, the senior shuttle that I championed, it wasn't my idea necessarily to have it run from the senior center on Friday nights and bring people downtown. It was designed for through the week to bring seniors from different parts of our community downtown, to our movie theaters, to our restaurants, to plays and art exhibits. So there's a whole host of things that we have to continue to work on.
Thank you. In light of our timing, we need to go to the 2-minute closing statements, and that will go in the reverse order of the opening statements, and we'll start with Alicia Aguirre.
Thank you. It's been an honor to serve as a council member for the last 10 years, and I'd like to continue to work with our communities, all of our businesses, all of our youth, all of our seniors in the work that we're trying to accomplish in Redwood City, both for quality of life, to be able to be fiscally responsible, to continue to work towards things that are passionate for all of us, whether it's in the environment, whether it's bike lanes, whether it's pedestrians, whether it's parks. I think there's so many things that we have an opportunity to really improve on. And I welcome folks to continue to give us ideas, but also to be part of the solution to help us find ways of making these things happen. We have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of great things happening in our city, and a lot of challenges. With every great thing comes a new obstacle. And how are we going to work on that? So I invite you to be part of that solution and be part of the community meetings that we've always had, and continue to reach out to you. And I ask for your vote as well when the things come out on October 5th, when the ballots come out, and November 3rd. Thank you.
So I want to take this opportunity to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Very much appreciated. I want to thank everyone in the audience for taking the time to come and be with us this evening. I have found it both an honor and a privilege to serve on the Redwood City City Council for the last 12 years. I have worked tirelessly on behalf of our entire community. I understand that in order to do a good job, you have to be flexible. You have to be willing to listen. You have to admit when you're wrong. You have to have a community agenda versus a personal agenda. And as a council member, I have worked hard every day to live by these principles and to retain the trust placed in me by the Redwood City residents. I've balanced the budget. I've made tough personnel decisions. I've focused on streets, sewers, parking and traffic, advanced public safety goals. We have the best police and fire departments on the peninsula. And I've also worked on the restoration of Bear Island. I've spent 12 years with Councilmember Pierce to have Bear Island, to find the funds necessary from federal, state, and local sources to restore Bear Island. I love this community. I love the people, the places, the diversity, and all the different opinions. We may not agree on everything, but together we can work hard to push forward and to figure out all the good opportunities that are before us, and we can solve the tough challenges. I respectfully ask for your vote when you receive your ballot in October.
Thank you all for coming tonight and taking your evening to sit out there listening to us try to gather all the thoughts that we can and convince you. So I hope we did a good job on entertaining you tonight. But so I have a history of working with community members to solve problems. That's what I love to do, bringing people together to the table to have those conversations. Let's figure out what the solution is together. So I want people to feel listened to, really listened to, that the decisions that are made are with you in mind. You, the community, the decisions that are made out up here directly affect your everyday life, from the simplest things like a street light, a traffic sign, a crosswalk, All of those things are things that keep you up at night. So I want to know what keeps you up at night. We were asked a question at the Redwood Shores Forum, what keeps you up at night? A lot of things keep me up at night. I want to know what keeps you up at night. What keeps you up at night, and what can we do to alleviate that? So that's what I want to do. Not everyone can make a meeting. Not everyone can go to a meeting. So there's plenty of opportunities, but you just can't get there. So I want to make sure that your issues are brought to the table, that you have someone that you can talk to. I advocate for having council members assigned to potential districts, so you have your own connection. I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if our charter allows it. I would like to look into that, where you can call up your council member and say, I have this issue, and they can take that back to the collective council and say, hey, this particular area has an issue. What can we do to help them? That might help you get that issue resolved in a faster way, in a more effective way. So every issue deserves to be looked at. I want to make sure that the decisions that are made up at this podium put our residents first.
So thanks again to the League, and thank you all for coming and staying. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. We've talked about housing and traffic. We've talked about transportation, and we've talked about engaging the community. And all of this and so much more really matters when we think about the next 4 years of our city. There are so many issues facing our council that will impact all of us. And I want to work with all of you and hopefully my future colleagues on the council to continue to set a positive course for this city. You've heard about my experience on the Redwood City School Board, my leadership in nonprofits I mentioned a little bit, and how I experienced this city through the lens of families. I've shared with you a little bit of the work I've done in the school district to increase community input and engagement, and how that experience can lead to better outcomes for all of us. We will work together to address our transportation needs, our public safety needs. We'll focus on housing and how we ensure our teachers and other public servants can live near where they work. And together, we'll ensure that this community continues to thrive and be a place where we want to raise our kids, stay on as adults, and grow old in. As the only person up here who brings both governance experience and a totally fresh perspective to the work of the city, I hope you'll agree with Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, Senator Jerry Hill, Assemblymember Kevin Mullen, and many other of my colleagues and supporters, and several of you in this room, that my perspective and experience is what our city needs, and that you'll consider voting for me when your ballot arrives in October. Thank you.
Well, I'm running for my last term on the council. For those of you who don't know, we have term limits. So if I'm elected this fall, it'll be my fourth and final term on the council. And I want to continue to do what I've been doing all along, which is listening to people, understanding their problems, taking their concerns very seriously, and then trying to help them. That's really what it comes down to. I don't have any agenda other than to serve the public and to make this community the best place it can be. Sometimes that involves working with colleagues. Sometimes it involves going it your own. I'm not afraid to challenge the status quo. I speak for what I believe in. I vote for what I believe in, and I let the chips fall where they may. Hopefully, people like that. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. But what I won't do is I won't dismiss your feelings. If you come here and you speak to me at City Hall, I'm not going to tell you you've been misinformed. I'm going to understand, and I'm going to try to get behind why you're feeling that way, whether you have the facts or not. When I argue my case, I do it factually, I do it rationally, and I'll continue to do that. I am passionate about a lot of things in this community. One of the things I'm passionate about is keeping this a community for all ages. So that means making sure that we have activities for our seniors and that it's easy for them to get around and to get to where they need to be. It also means activities for our young people. We've lost Malibu, we've lost Mel's Bowl. We need to replace those activities. And that's something I plan to focus on the next 4 years. I also plan to continue my work on energy efficiency and conservation. So as the chair of the Environmental Initiatives Committee, I was behind our current climate action plan. If you want a longer list of my accomplishments and my endorsements, they're on my website. I won't bore you with those details, but I do appreciate the chance to have served the last 13 years, and I hope you'll give me 4 more. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 3rd. ballots will come in October. And then I also want to thank the League for their time and for organizing this tonight. Thank you.
The single most important, I am on, right? Yes. The single most important thing I think of a council member is to be inclusive. One of the reasons I got involved and decided to run was because I was at Docktown and I felt that the council wasn't listening to our community at Docktown. The most interesting thing that I've found as I started to go out and talk to other communities and walk the precincts is that Docktown isn't the only community. Every single community out there feels that for some reason they're not being heard. My background, I was president, I forgot to mention earlier, I was president of the Residents Association when I represented the auto repair industry to Sacramento. Believe me, both those organizations, it was like herding cats. Everybody had their own opinion, their own way of doing things, and they wanted it done a different way. So it's building bridges across all of our various differences. I understand that Redwood City is in a period of change. I understand that change is difficult. But I truly do believe that change is exciting. I think that we need to plan and envision the future of the city, and we need to do so in a realistic and sustainable fashion. I believe I have the background. I have been in high tech, in small business, and I'm multilingual and multicultural. I want to bring all of these abilities that I have to help you all craft the community you want to live in. I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the candidates and our League volunteers this evening, and I'd especially like to thank Reen Paley for her emergency calligraphy, stepping in a moment of need. I'd especially like to thank you, the audience, for being here this evening and taking time to better inform yourselves before voting. I want to remind you to please check the www.smartvoter.org for additional information, and check the League website to consider joining us and helping us out on future forums. Thank you very much. A lot more questions. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good questions. Like, they're working questions.